Welcome to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show, where we explore nighttime dreams, daytime desires, and the best ways to transform the tragic into magic. Because let's face it, we all dream, we all have our blessings, and we all have our challenges, myself included. And I don't want any of us to take any of those things lying down, if you know what I mean. I just wrote a book entitled A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. It comes out spring of 2023. And in the meantime, I'm excited to explore the topic with you, whether it relates to your waking or sleeping dreams, because we're dreaming all the time, people. So let's make it the best dream possible. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. I am so excited. Normally this show is about dreams, and today is really not that different, but this is about bringing the dream that we have for our relationships, for our sex life, for our partnerships with our significant others, and also our relationships, period. It's about elevating them to the level of dreams. We're not going to be interpreting dreams on this show, but I'm talking to the amazing Alison Armstrong, or Alison A. Armstrong. I'm going to read the bio for the one person on the planet that doesn't know who this amazing woman is. Alison Armstrong's exploration of human behavior began in 1991 with her decision to study men, to find out how, quote, I was bringing out the worst in them and hopefully how to bring out the best, end quote. Her success in understanding men naturally led to studying women's behavior and making vital connections between the two. As her work evolved over decades, Alison now illuminates human characteristics that precede and express themselves regardless of gender, age, and upbringing. She distinguishes normal human instinct that compel both men and women to behave in ways that contradict and undermine their own purposes, goals, values, needs, and relationships. Besides fulfilling the need to understand why people behave as they do, Alison offers practical partnership-based alternatives through her seminars, books, online programs, and media contributions. She has given millions of people access to more fulfilling lives, loving relationships, stronger families, and productive organizations. Alison is a sought-after speaker and thought leader among people with the desire to live empowered lives. Her philosophy and approach are referenced and taught by other authors, myself included. I give her credit every time. Speakers, business consultants, and therapists. Her live events and over 100 hours of online programs are available at AlisonArmstrong.com. That's ALISON Armstrong, ARMSTRONG.com. Okay, and the latest thing we're talking about is a book that came out several years ago, but it's now, thank Jesus and Lord and all the angels, for the audio version that I just completed, and I am just buzzing. I'm buzzing. It was just my birthday, so I felt like it was the universe giving me a massive birthday present. Thank you so much, Alison Armstrong.
You're welcome.
So I know there's so much that people really, I mean, I say this sometimes when I interview great authors, I say, just get the book, but this is a mandate. This is a woman date. This is a human date. Get the Queen's Code audiobook, and there's so much in it, but let's just talk about what inspired you to create the audio version of this masterpiece.
Well, oh my gosh, it's such a long time coming. And until I didn't know why it took so long, right? So started studying men in 1991. By 1992, I knew I needed to write this book. I know I had to. And by the end of 1994, I still didn't know how. I had so many conversations with women about how we've misinterpreted and misunderstood men, and that almost everything we ever wanted is available if we just see them a bit differently. The they themselves would say, I'm never going to be your girlfriend. So we just like go with that, trying to make them our girlfriends, we'll be ahead. But so I knew I needed to write it. I didn't know how to write it. And that's why we started our workshops, was so I could keep teaching women what I'd learned about men, bump up against their barriers to letting it in, to processing it, to implementing it, like just keep bumping up against that and finding solutions with them and for them. And I had no idea it was going to take 15 years, literally 15 years to finally, one night I just knew. All of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, I know how to do it. And then what was odd about Kelly, and have you read or listened to Keys to the Kingdom?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good.
Both
Oh,
read
good.
and listened, but I need to review them because just like with the Queen's Code, it all felt brand new to me. But continue, please.
Thank you. So the same thing happened with Keys of the Kingdom, right? So as I'm learning how to write the Queen's Code, Keys of the Kingdom showed up, like giving birth. Like this has got to come out now, and shocked the heck out of me, because when I sat down to write it like a normal person, that was when the screen first opened, and the movie started running. And Mike and Karen and Claudia and Bert just kept revealing themselves to me. I watched their lives over those, I think it's 6 weeks in Keys of the Kingdom. And they surprised me. Like Mike. Mike's this Italian from the Midwest who fancies himself a cowboy. Right. And it's like
darling.
And in his own mind, he thinks of Karen like, oh, that filly. And he's like gonzoed about his wife, right?
Yeah.
And but I didn't like decide that this character would be this way. No, this movie started playing. I typed like crazy. And so when it came time to do the Queen's Code, we did this very methodical process, right? We wrote a book proposal. We went to New York. We met with publishers. There was an auction that 3 publishers participated in. Wow. And then there was the one that won, right? And I had all the chapter outlines and everything you have to do in a formal proposal. And so, okay, I'm going to sit down and write this book. And sat down to write it. Screen opens and the movie's rolling. And like, oh my gosh, it's here. I'm back. It's here. Whoa. And I'm looking up because that's where it was, right? The screen was right here. And I just typed as fast as I could until I was exhausted. And then I would come back the next morning and unjumble my typing, right? Make real sentences and whatnot, punctuation and whatnot out of what I'd done the day before. And then always kind of concerned, like, okay, what'll happen after I fix this? Every single time. As soon as I was done, go pee, come back, screen opens, and we're on. And at the time, I didn't have a relationship to the word channeling, and I still don't really. I don't understand it. I've seen people channel, right? And voices change and all this stuff, that's really interesting. That doesn't happen to me, right? There's just movies running, and I laughed, I cried, I learned things, right, that I have no awareness of knowing. And a magical process, and kind of crazy, that someone could write a 96,000 word book in 3 weeks. That shouldn't be possible. But I didn't write it. I typed it.
You took dictation.
I did. And also
amazing.
Trying to figure out, right? Like how do you describe this? Right? Like, okay, that's what Kimberly's doing.
Right.
How do you describe it? Right. Right. And so this whole thing, I know this is not me making a long story short, but it's leading up to the audiobook. So this, so from the very beginning, it just was this magical thing. And when I turned it into the publisher, they wanted me to cut almost half of it.
No.
Yes. And I couldn't. Like, no, this isn't mine to cut. This is itself. There's nothing to go chopping. It's the story that told itself. I don't have the right to do that. Unfortunately, she'd never seen it happen before. She has like over 30 best-selling titles, my agent, but she knew how important it was to me. And so in my contract was this very, very unusual, unheard of thing that I got to approve the title. And even like the John Grishams of the world, they don't get to decide the titles of their books. The publishers do. But it was in my contract. And when they were proposing these lame titles, I knew the whole marketing plan was going to be just as bad. And Bonnie Solo had never heard of it before. I gave them their money back and I took my book back. Yeah, I took it back.
Wow.
Sent them the advance, took the book back, and then didn't realize it for months that I was heartbroken, right? That they didn't get it. I thought I was burnt out, but I finally got, oh, I'm just heartbroken. And so there I was on my 50th birthday, coming back from Italy with Greg sitting beside me, and the plane was just took off, and I decided I was going to make a list of, now that I was 50 years old, what was I going to do? And the first thing I put on the list was to, I think it was discover or something, or find the best possible way to publish the Queen's Code for the widest possible audience. And I wrote it down, and then I wrote some other things down, and then I went back and I looked at my list. And when I looked at what I had written, I was sitting at a bulkhead, and it was like it was written on the bulkhead. I was given a complete plan for how to publish it.
Wow.
Yeah, just instruction after instruction after instruction, that to publish it on the internet so that it could never be suppressed. Right? You put something on the internet, it's not going out of existence no matter how hard
it's
you
got
try.
a life of its own. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So it had to be published on the internet. It had to be published a chapter at a time, which most people don't know. Great Expectations was published a chapter at a time in a magazine, a month at a time.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
So a chapter at a time. So people would be on the journey, right? So like it's a week in the lives of these 8 people. And if we take it a week at a time ourselves and give ourselves time to absorb and see through the information, right? And experience and feel it, and the confrontation of it, and the aversion to it, and the attraction, and give ourselves space, right? Which is just my greatest wish for people. And when we first published, I got to control it because I only released a chapter at a time, and then interacted with people who were reading the book. They got to post videos and ask questions, and I would respond. And it was so cool. We had book clubs, and what we didn't anticipate, though, Kelly, was we were provincial, I think is the right word. Our website didn't even have a space to put in your country. It was just city, state, and zip code.
Okay.
That's all the address had. And so we published the book, and then I would look and see, did anybody buy the book? and I every morning it was where is, and I would just copy these funny words in the city or state box, usually the city box. I'd paste it in where is, and within 3 weeks it was in over 70 countries.
What? That's incredible.
I mean,
wow.
it's appropriate, to talk about dreams, right? Because this it's a waking dream, right? And it's my job. This is my job to get this information out there. My God job, as my friend would say. And so, I was given the plan. It took 2 years to implement the plan and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which, we didn't have, but it showed up. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, widest possible audience, right? No way would you get 70 countries in 3 weeks from a New York book publisher, right? Like, no, that's not going to happen. So,
wow.
And immediately what happened was people started asking for the audiobook. And there was even a woman who I was being interviewed by Dennis Prager, and she was there. And I said, have you read The Queen's Code? And she said, no, I'm waiting for it to come out on audiobook. And I thought in my mind, because she was adamant about it, like, I only do audiobooks. I'm waiting for it to come out on audiobook. And I thought in my head, okay, well, just keep screwing up your relationships with men meanwhile.
Right, exactly. How's
No
that working for you, honey?
here.
Right, exactly.
It just happens every day, all day long. Do we want to fix that until it's convenient for you in an audiobook?
Right.
And for years, the number one question people have called us with is, when's it going to come out on audiobook? When's it going to come out on audiobook? And it's been 10 years. October will be 10 years since we published the written book, right? And it's usually in the top 100 in its category on Amazon, right? It just, like, it's unheard of as a self-published book, how many copies are sold, and people kept, when's the audiobook? When's the audiobook? And for some reason, I wasn't compelled to do it. Like, the way I would say it is, like, you can't knock me up. I don't have an egg for that, right? Like, no matter how hard you try to get me to do that, I had zero response to the request. Like, oh, we should. And we'd produced the Keys of the Kingdom audiobook within a couple of years, at least, of Keys of the Kingdom. It was 2 years. And so then finally, and my boyfriend has a whole lot to do with this. Finally, I got committed to doing it, but I lived out in the boonies. I couldn't find a recording studio. It was crazy. And then I fell in love with Dan, and he found a recording studio where he lives in Steamboat Springs. And so I scheduled all these times to come and record it. Like, it got built into, I'd stay with him and record the book. And so we started doing that. And from the first moment, and it'll be a year. Next month, it'll be a year. As I was recording it, the intensity, right? The difference between, and a friend of mine just said that, he said, the difference between hearing the words in your voice, your tone, your meanings is different than hearing them in mine, right? In his own head when he read it 10 years ago. And Kimberly and Karen are so intent upon this thing they're having problems with, right? Men, as a single woman and who works and manages men and all this stuff, and then as a teacher and a wife who's trying to get pregnant and in different contexts, and then Claudia, her intensity about the transformation of her granddaughter and this woman who's become so dear to her, right? You see that in Keys of the Kingdom. And then what was odd, Kelly, was in reading it, which I'm not a voiceover actor, and I didn't intend it with Keys of the Kingdom either, right? I'm really not, but I couldn't not try to do the best I could in speaking the voice that I heard in the movie, right? And oh my gosh. And but it didn't matter that I've done I did like 3 book clubs with the Shift Network. So I, besides transcribing the book and editing the book and then proofreading the book and everybody else proofreading the book, and we still found errors. People get caught up in the story, and even like the proofreaders, they just miss stuff. They're like, gone. I'm like, okay, this is useless. and even doing the audiobook, I found still more typos and missing words crazy? And like, oh my gosh. But I've never been able to remember what's in there. I every time I read it to prepare for a book club, I'd be like, that's in here? They said that happened, right? and then when I was doing the audiobook, I was surprised all over again. And you can hear it. I'll get choked up with emotion. Oh yeah. And there are times where we cut it and redid it because it wasn't congruent. It was my emotion. And then there were times when it was just theirs. And so we left it, right? But I was only, I think I was on the 3rd chapter, right? Hat pins and stilettos. And that's when, and so it was the first day that I was recording, and I just like, my jaw dropped at one point, and I thought, this is why we haven't done it. And I saw it in terms of that the intensity of the audiobook is so much higher than almost anyone would read it in their head to themselves, right? And knowing the emphasis in the sentence, the spirit of the sentence, the mood, Claudia's compassion. Like I told my staff, I said, there's a reason we haven't done this for so long. I said, we weren't ready. We couldn't have held a big enough space for what it's going to be like for people to do this. If they listen to it like their lives depend on it, right? If they go after everything that's possible from it, like, I just knew we hadn't been big enough for that kind of impact, that kind of mental impact, emotional impact, shift in perspective. I mean, the intent was always to write a book that would transform how women related to men. I didn't know until just in the last couple of years, Will Spencer of the Renaissance of Men has been sharing the Queen's Code with men, leaders in the men's movement.
What?
So yes, because as Will said, as he told me, it was the first book he ever wrote by a woman that praised men and that had him understand what it would himself. Had him understand why he does what he does. And I mean, men love the Queen's Code, and getting to have compassion for why women do what they do, like to get to understand what's behind the way women treat men, and how much pain and frustration women are in. So that was a really long answer to your
It was the best answer ever. And I'm so glad you answered it exactly that way, because you took me, I felt like you allowed me / us to go on the journey of what it's like to be in your world. And it's kind of very special. And I also support people to fulfill their dream in writing books. And I feel like I'm going to share this with them, because I love the journey. It doesn't have to look like the traditional publishing way at all. For people that really want it to be their own quirky way, that is the way that it's downloaded. It's like, this is we're in a great time in this universe to be able to, where we can do this. And I'm so grateful that you followed it exactly, because it landed on me there's so much I want to say about my experience of it. And
Please,
I'll
please.
I'll just say a couple things: breakthroughs, breakdowns, breakthroughs. I had a breakdown and it made me think, God, I jumped too fast. And I just recently went back. I'm like, what did I do wrong? And I saw, like, I missed a couple steps. Oh my God. Like, this formula is brilliant. And it is a, okay, what can I say? I'll say this. What was great was, this is all around my birthday. And I had this awareness that all my husband ever wants to do, not just for my birthday, but ever, is to make my life better and to provide a wonderful experience for me within the realm of what he's able to do.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm not the world's best receiver, although I'm 1,000 times better, having been in the osmosis of you and your work. Like, something like, in my world, I'm the you of my world.
Yeah, I get that.
But in your world, I'm a kindergartner. I'm a baby. I'm still Melissa in so many ways. By the way, all the characters are so great. I related to all of them, even the men, strangely, but I'm all the women, and I saw the Melissa in me. Melissa, by the way, for anybody who hasn't read or listened to this, is she's kind of the what not to do. And there's hope for her, but I don't want to give anything away. But I'll just say that
I
during
was her
the,
too, by the way.
I love the whole frog farmer bit. That
Yes.
is just, it's wonderful when a couple words can speak volumes. It's like a shorthand. It's like, I'm frog farming, frog farming, frog farming. Oh my God. It's so clear. But at least I know when I see the frog farming results, I
Yes.
know enough to ask myself, like, there's probably a good reason for his reaction, even if I'm mad about it. And
Yes.
I know that there's something for me to do. So all I'll say is, in a nutshell, I had the best birthday I think I've ever had. And it was very simple. It was just, here's what I want. And he was like, here you go. And I was moved to tears because I saw, like, what's the problem? Why,
Yeah.
there shouldn't be a problem. All he wants to do is make my life better. And I want my life better. And then and when I give back, and when I'm gracious and receiving, and also let him know what he's provided, it's just like it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
So I don't know if I should say where I screwed up. Maybe I should tell you off air, and then I think I know what my boo-boo was.
Well, the only thing that I try not to give away is
Okay.
the story.
Yes.
Right?
Because
because this story's, I realized
There's-
early on it had to be a story, because we
Yes.
learn so much better when we're not in the hot seat, when
so
it's our
true.
choice to identify, right? And we allows us, we're not being told what to do. We're watching this other thing happening, and we can take on what we're ready for when we're ready for it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to say what you did or didn't
Without
do,
giving the
but
story.
without giving away the framework, then I think that's fine. Because I teach this
In your workshops.
Yeah,
I think
it's so odd. It's so odd to know some of it and to have taught it consciously.
Yeah.
And to not have known so much. And even, I call her the other Alison. I watch recordings of me leading workshops, and I learn things from them. So that thing that happens with the movie appears to happen to me, like, on stage too, like in Understanding Men. There's this thing I taught in Understanding Men that when I was editing it, I said, what? I had to rewind it. I don't know that. So
it makes sense though, because you're attuned to the wisdom, and then it's like there's this magnetic thing. It feels channeled. And I've interviewed a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the new thought, new age, self-improvement world that I love. You are at the top of that food chain for me. I've learned so much. And my sister even said, my sister and my husband aren't getting along. And that's a lot. It's really sad. It breaks my heart. But she said to me, you wouldn't still be married if it wasn't for Alison Armstrong. And I think I wouldn't be married, period. I
Mm.
wouldn't. I mean, I was really good at bringing them in, but then the frog farming would happen pretty quickly. And I would
Yeah.
have I mean, I was a serial monogamous, so it would be like several years, but it
Yeah.
was, but this work has been truly transformational on the deepest level. So I think I can put in a nutshell what I did wrong, and what,
Okay.
hopefully I'll say it out loud to call myself out on it. And I feel like I could cry, but it's one word, and you say it early on in the story, so I don't think I'm giving anything away. But there's this notion that when you ask not you, I think I'm going to say, like, pretend like you're Claudia, but you're not Claudia, even though I picture like an
You
older
know what?
version of you.
When I started, I was Melissa, and then I became
Kimberly.
Kimberly, and aspects of Karen for sure. And then that's one of the things that happened when I was doing the audiobook was, how did I become Claudia?
Claudia.
And
Oh,
yeah, um and something just to tell you, because it affected me in the audiobook, and it still does now, because I'm interacting with people who are listening to it 2 hours a week, all over the world. They come on and ask me questions, and then we're going to take all those questions and edit them. And people who've missed the Queen's, it's called Your Queen's Code Journey. People who missed it, which they can still join us right now, we're going to have it edited, and then they can see. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we're on chapter 6 this week.
Oh,
And so we have 3 more weeks of it. But the thing is over the years, because of what happened between Keys of the Kingdom and the Queen's Code, I check in. They still are these 8 people. And I'm like, so what's happening with you guys? Yeah.
yes.
And they show me, it's like getting a movie trailer. They show me, they show me what's happening.
They're so
Show me what
alive.
they're dealing with now.
I'm not going to say anything about what I imagine is happening now, but I'm in that movie with you, and I'm seeing the what's next with all of them. I'll just say this one big word. It's the big,
Okay.
I would say it's like the big nasty word.
Okay.
It's when women assume men are misbehaving women. It's the word misbehaving. I feel like I want to tattoo it to my brain, because I noticed my husband, I was saying something about my needs, and I said, just tell me that they're valid. And he's like he just couldn't, he wouldn't say those words. And I'm like, I just gave you the script and you're not saying it. And then all of a sudden the rage monster came out, like, why can't you? What? Oh my God. And the more I did that, the more he was like, nope. And so I had to just step away. And then I realized later, oh my God, I didn't do several things that I should have done, but there was a good reason for it. And I imagine, and I just didn't later, like it took the next day, like that, I kind of blew it for that night. But I had been on a roll doing so good. So I was heartbroken. But this is what happens in the book too. There's ups and downs and ups and downs. So it was very heartening when the characters kept stumbling. Like they don't just go, oh, here's the wisdom, I applied it and it was perfect and easy and here we go. It's like, no, it's very real. So I was heartened with their struggles. Thank you for including their struggles. I can't tell you that enough, because otherwise I would just do the thing where I feel stupid, I can't do this, so therefore it's irrelevant, I don't need it.
Yes.
But you made it so it was accessible. So I was able to get back on the horse, and then look at what I could do better and make some repair attempts and whatever. We're back on, we're doing great. Just wanted to tell you that coming back in, I think this wisdom is something to be repeated, that for any woman who's listening or watching, or who will watch and listen, or listen and read the Queen's Code, if you don't get it just right the first time, just know, like, I am Melissa, and I'm a recovering Melissa, frog farmer to the max. And I pray one day I will no longer be Melissa, because it just seems like such a waste. It's like taking a pot of gold and just spray painting it with a bunch of green goo. It's like, why
Yeah.
would you do that? We could use that gold. We could do something with that.
Yes.
Oh, so that was me just going off on a wild tangent.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And can I tell you
Yes,
something?
yes, yes, please.
So in the second session of your Queen's Code journey, we interact. Maybe it was even in the first one. Oh, the first session, when I was, a woman asked, how do I know if it's frog farming? Right? How can you tell if it's frog farming? There's actually an excerpt of this on our website. You can just listen. You actually watch the video of me interacting with that. And I got to tell the story, which happened because setting up to record the book in Steamboat was the beginning of what led to me moving to Steamboat, which had me living in Dan's house for 40 days while we got my place ready, because I wanted to live alone, but close by, and was 40 days of me every day waking up, okay, Buck and we're going to go for a hike. And then I go upstairs and make breakfast for Dan and me and sit and eat with him and go to work without having gotten outside, without having moved my body, without having done one of the things that's essential to my well-being. And being in a house, it'd been 3 years since I'd been in a house with a man, with the way that our instincts have us monitor them. And every grunt and grumble, and he was sneezing a lot at the time from allergies, and I was in full-on mother, caretaker, healer, fix him, please him. I did everything that women do, everything that women do, and he changed. He changed, and not for the better. And we almost broke up over Christmas. And in that session, when she asked the question about frog farming and then what do you do about it, I told what I did with Dan, and that had us not just recover, but end up stronger and better. And but I'm just telling you this because the Alison Armstrong,
the one, the only,
right. 30 years into studying men, frog farmed badly.
Thank you. That you don't even know the medicine that's happening in my soul right now. And I could just stop. I could just cry. And that helps me so much, because I feel like I'm not such a loser. And I know there's like a whole thing that you tell the women to not beat themselves up.
Right.
And I think it's a step up the ladder, the beating of the self up from the beating, making it somebody else's fault, because I can't do anything if it's somebody else's fault. I can only do something in my lane. And then I have to work on being kind to myself when I stumble. So thank you.
You're welcome. Can I say something about that as it ties to what you said?
Yes.
So self-recrimination, I think, is one of the things Claudia says will not be tolerated.
Yes,
and
I love that.
And one of the things that I love about the word recrimination is it has the word criminal in it.
Yes.
And so what if no one's misbehaving, including yourself?
Ooh,
and so because misbehaving, those are criminals. Criminals are considered to be misbehaving.
Right.
And that's why they get punished.
Yes.
Right. And there's a whole element, and I've talked to parents about this, the difference between allowing your young people to experience natural consequences of their behavior versus punishment, right? So punishment comes from, you shouldn't have done this, and you know you shouldn't have done this, and you did the wrong thing, and you knew the right thing and you didn't do it, and you should be punished, right? You're a criminal and you should be punished. And that's how we interact a lot. We interact with men for sure that way, thinking that they know the right thing to do and they're not on purpose. Young people, we think they know the right thing to do. At a certain age, you now know the right thing to do and you're going to get punished. It's usually, we don't punish 2-year-olds. We don't expect them to know the right thing. But 13, 14 years old, when their brain isn't going to be fully developed for another decade, we still think they should know the right thing and they get punished, right? And then we also, the invitation in your Queen's Code journey, because I've learned so much in the last 10 years, is we actually, you'll see in the video, we invite you when it comes time to lay down the sword, if you choose to do that, to literally, you're going to love this, Kelly, when you watch it, to craft your own code of honor. Ooh. Yeah. As a queen, your code of honor. And including the invitation to give up justifying disempowering yourself. Oh. Yeah, because we think we deserve it, right? That's the recrimination. I'm a criminal. Right. I misbehaved.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! This morning, Dad came over to give me a hug before I started work, and I said I need to acknowledge something. I need to apologize for something. I make a distinction between an ass and an asshole. and so I said, I haven't been an asshole about this, but I've definitely been an ass. And so I apologize for not cleaning the cat box for so long.
Wow.
The cats live in his garage, and the cat box is my responsibility. And I can't honestly tell you when I did it the last time until this morning. I made up my mind no matter what, I was going to do that.
Wow.
Right? So talk about misbehaving. Allison, give me a break. Clean the cat box. Clean it. It's on my schedule. Cat box.
Cat box. Okay. Well, okay.
And I've ignored it for weeks.
I'm curious why.
I'm not even going to tell you how many weeks. Well, because
why it doesn't go on his list. Is he more aware of it?
We're alternately aware of it.
Okay.
Because it's in his garage, and when he goes to the back of the garage, which he calls the garage now the cat barn, ever since. They're my daughter's kitties. They're really old, and they live in the cat barn, and they have their own entrance and exit. And I was aware of it because, refilling their food. He'd be aware of it when he'd go to get something from the garage, to do some work at the back of the garage. But we made a deal. We made a deal this morning. No matter what, once a week. I asked him if he had it all his way, how often would I clean up the cat box? And I thanked him for not making me wrong, not nagging me, he's been an angel about it. And fortunately, I had some really good litter that honestly, there is no odor.
What is that litter? I think people need that, because I've known relationships to end over kitty litter. So
over cat boxes, cat
boxes.
They're not
trash.
Yeah.
It's the stinky stuff. Okay, well,
the stinky stuff, exactly. The stinky stuff, which of course we address trash.
Which you address. So I want to say just a few things as we, move toward wrapping this up, which on a parallel plane, I hope we never have to wrap up. We could just keep going. But the age-old question about how do you get the guy to help take out the trash gets very beautifully answered with it's like something that seems so superficial, but it's not. It's profound. And I have to say that's one of the areas that I'm I'm still not great at, but I'm going to practice I'm going to go back until I get it right. And I've gotten it right a few times and then I just slip, but there's a way to be able to do it. So that gets addressed. Also, sex is, and I'm always shocked because you occur to me as like, I don't know. I think I'm a little bit of, I'm a little prudish, even though I wrote a book called The Love, Sex, and Relationship Dream Dictionary, and I talk openly about all the kinds of things, but I'm like, oh my God, we're talking about sex, and not just on the surface, but like getting into it. And it's shocking. I learned so much again, even though I read the book 10 years ago. I'm shocked. I'm seeing the world in a completely different way. And it's incredible. So I just want people to know sex is in there. The trash.
Oh boy, sex is in there.
Is in there. And I wrote a word about, I can't remember. I can't even read my writing. Oh, I know. So just because it's like in this particular day and age with gender fluidity and pronouns being changing, and how does your work, and I know that there's a beautifully elegant way that you will address this, but just for those who are in the midst of changing their pronouns and who aren't in conventional relationships, how is this relevant for people that are in same-sex relationships or in that kind of a thing? How can they filter that and receive the gold?
Well, definitely chapter 5 and all the things that Claudia teaches in chapter 5 about having a delicious sexual partnership, not just a relationship, but a partnership.
Delicious.
Delicious. Yes, delicious. They all apply. And in any, it doesn't matter. And I have zero prejudice. In fact, in the last few years, I'm like, how did I end up in this heterosexual backwater?
What do you mean? What do you mean? How did you end up in this heterosexual backwater? What do you mean by that?
Meaning that people wonder, do you know, they like, how does it, people have to wonder, how does this apply to same-sex romantic relationships?
Right.
And I've never been pro-hetero. Right. I've never, I mean, my children, when my children are young, one of my best friends is gay. I have a lot of gay friends, and one of my best friends is gay, and they grew up having her in their lives. And so, you know, we just had a habit. Do you remember the Game of Life?
Yes. Yeah.
So one thing about the Game of Life that I find horrible, and I'm living a very alternate lifestyle right now in a deeply devoted is probably a better word than, no, it's not even devoted. Not sure how to describe it. Dan and I don't live together on purpose, right? So that, and we've promised to never give the other person the ultimatum, marry. And we do that out of love. And our deal is we get to be together for as long as we give each other what we need. Period. That when we stop being able to give each other what the other needs, which each of us needs to be able to give the other what they need, right? That's a loser. You're getting what you need, but you know you're failing with them.
Right.
Yeah, we get to be together. I get to keep him, as we say. I get to keep him for as long as I'm giving him what he needs and he's giving me what I need. And I have a list of everything I need, and he's, some of the things he's not there yet, and he knows he's not there yet. And and I keep checking in with him because he doesn't have such a list, but I suss it out, you know. But anyhow, when my kids are, to finish one thought, when my kids are little, we played this game of life, right? And you roll the die and you progress and you go the little spaces, and then you get to a hard stop. You cannot pass this. No matter how much you roll, there's a hard stop at get married.
Oh Lord, I didn't remember that. Oh
Yeah. Hard stop.
what?
Everybody
Okay.
has to stop at get married. But what my kids would do, because I was committed to this, is they get to the hard stop and like, okay, do you want to be gay or straight? And so they might have a pink little person for themselves, or do you want to be a girl or a boy this time? I did that with
Wow.
my 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. Like, do you want, so when we're playing life, do you want to be a girl or a boy this time? And then want to be gay or straight? And so they'd have 2 blues or 2 pinks, or I'm going to be a boy, but I'm going to have a wife. And, they just, it was just part of life choice in this area, at least the right to choose, since I don't think we decide our sexuality. Give me a break. When do we ever decide what turns us on? So, right, it's more a discovery than a choice. This is what I would say.
Right. Oh, I
So,
love that distinction.
yeah, so everything in chapter 5 applies across the board, and you'll get to see Kimberly working it out, right, in a new context, and which shocked the hell out of me, by the way. When they had dinner and she did what she did, I did not see that coming. And I did not see his reaction coming either. I was flabbergasted watching the movie. I didn't know. She took me by surprise as much as Jack, and Jack took me by surprise as much as Kimberly.
Will this be a movie, an actual movie? That's the next thing.
Well, the movie,
no, like an actual movie, like Netflix, like on the screen.
From the very beginning, I've cast it, in my own head.
You're the casting agent.
I don't want to ruin. Everybody should have their own picture. That's why they're not described too much, so everybody can have their own picture. But yeah, I've cast it. Who knows if it ever will be. I had another book that came through in a weird way, a voice in my head that was what do they call it? Well, it was contracted to be turned into a movie, and it never was.
Yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually a screenplay out there by Will Arntz of What the Book Do We Know. Yep. He mostly wrote it, and I coached him on the conversations. And anyhow, it's a whole other story of crazy, weird world stuff. But this is what I could say. So in the Queen's Code, and I talk about this in your Queen's Code journey because it's my chance to update.
Yes.
In the Queen's Code, Claudia talks about masculine and feminine. Okay, so masculine and feminine ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of approaching things. And I stopped using those words for the most part by 2013. So almost 10 years ago, because they have so much baggage, a rightness for a man to be masculine and a wrongness for a man to be feminine, which was very confusing for them. And then a wrongness for a woman to be too masculine, but also a wrongness for her to be too feminine. And she's got to be feminine, but feminine's weak and less than. Right. And it's another excerpt on our website is a woman asking, isn't it better to be a king than a queen? And so I distinguish between masculine and feminine forms of power. But I started shifting to hunters and gatherers. And the Understanding Women online course on our site will talk about a woman when she's being a hunter versus a woman when she's being a gatherer, because we think differently and we feel differently. We relate to our feelings differently. And what we need is completely different, just like men and women. But then I saw people use hunter and gatherer to objectify themselves and others. Oh, she's such a hunter, right? Like, no, we're way more fluid than that. So then I started talking about hunting mode and gathering mode, right?
Oh, I love that.
And then about a year or so ago, I just keep stepping back to see what's the most room to see and to have choice. And I started talking to it about it more as mindsets. Are you in a committed state of mind? Once you commit to a result, all these things will happen, including your brain will screen out what's irrelevant.
Yes.
Right? Which for example, a woman deciding I'm going to get married this year. Well, if she's truly focuses on that, her brain will screen out, is this the right person or not?
Yeah.
She will get married, but that doesn't make it the right person. It's both productive and has a lot of consequences. Right? And so a committed state of mind versus an open state of mind. And it's one of the things to help men understand themselves without the stigma of feminine and I have to develop my feminine side. No. Committed state of mind, which is natural for testosterone to configure the brain that way. And it requires a lot of fuel, which men have more than women. But it's really fun. You get to kick ass, take names, make stuff happen, right?
Yeah.
An open state of mind allows us to maintain connections.
Yeah.
Right? And have people feel that we're paying attention to them, feel us caring about them. Like a man, in a committed state of mind, we could be providing our butts off, man or female, right? Female or female, just like taking care of people, deciding what they need, giving them what they need, and like, or we're caring, but it doesn't feel caring. Right? It's an expression of care. I've never said this before, Kelly.
Oh, I love this. You're channeling. It's beautiful. Keep going. We're recording. It's great.
Yeah, all that providing. It's an expression of care, but it doesn't feel like care because we can't feel their attention on us. Right? It feels like being ignored even when they're doing something for us. Right? Because that's what a committed state of mind does.
Right.
And as I got older, as we get older, we talk about this in understanding women, our eggs are disappearing. They're the source of most of our estrogen and half of our testosterone. So all these things are disappearing in our bodies with these hormones, and we get more focused. And I actually had to teach my daughter, I was 35 when she was born. I had to teach my daughter, my mind is changing and I don't mean to ignore you. I just am getting more focused. And so I don't hear you when you start talking. You have to first say, Mom, and then wait for me to look at you. And then I am paying attention and I can hear you, right? So I had to teach her as my mind was changing from naturally open and seeming uncontrollably open is what estrogen does, right? We're overwhelmed by what diffuse awareness can take in, right? And so as it was shifting to less of that, which men, by the way, you'll notice it's a very interesting thing. We're attracted to men when they're being productive because it's perceived as strength, right? We fall in love with men when they have an open state of mind. In other words, when they're at play. So when a man's at play, he has no result to produce. There's nothing to do but be here, right? Well, I'm just here with you. And we're doing what you wanted to do. And Best of Panel of Men once, when you're with a woman, do you mind doing what she wants to do and not what you want to do? And one man said, I get to do what I want to do all the time. So when I'm with you, I'm fine doing what you want to do because the whole rest of the time I can do what I want to do. And it's called dating. They, want to show us a good time. But so Dan and I date. But it's so cute. Yes. And Oh, sorry, my heater just kicked on. We're having a cool day here in Steamboat Springs.
Oh, I'm so jealous. We're having a 90-degree day here in Topanga
1 second,
Canyon,
I'm
LA.
going to kick it.
Yes.
Every once in a while it does this rattle thing. Sorry about that.
Well, I know
counting on your editing.
And yes, exactly.
Okay.
I think all of it should be included. And I know we need to wrap up soon to honor your time.
Let me finish the thought.
Yes, please. Yes.
So if, and please forgive me, people can set aside the male femaleness of the Queen's Code, we can find ourselves in all of them. Like you did. You said you found yourself in all 8 characters. There's 4 men and 4 women. And something we haven't mentioned is, I think what's one of the things that's special about the 8 characters is each section, the name, the first word in each section of the book is the point of view that you're experiencing it from. So when a section starts out with Raoul popped, a piece of chewing, rolled up a piece of chewing gum and popped it in his mouth.
Yep.
Now you're from Raoul's point of view, right?
Yes.
Because Kimberly's boss. When it starts with Jack, when it starts with Bert, whatever name it starts with, that's the point of view. And I knew from the very beginning that the book needed to be that way. I didn't anticipate they would switch at will. My turn.
And it happens,
right?
It happened so fluidly. It was very well done. I never got confused ever. I knew whose mind I was in. And it was so helpful to hear the inner thoughts of Raoul and Jack and Mike and then Claudia. I mean, it was wonderful to get to not just have this omniscient perspective or not just have Kimberly's point of view on all these people. It couldn't have been done otherwise. And then in the actual movie, it will have to be just like that. Where we hear their voice talking.
If we ever have
I'm producing your movie right now.
You're producing my movie.
I'm on the set.
You're on the set. Well, to me, why it was so important is because of my assertion that we're all in our own blind spot. We all have some kind of dysmorphia. We cannot see ourselves. And
even Claudia
doesn't see herself, right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Which is just awesome when Bert had that to contribute to her. Oh my gosh, God bless him. And
that was quite a big deal for me. Yeah. I love that.
It was all of Bert's part in the book were especially tender for me. But the point is that we can't see ourselves. And especially what I've noticed, and one of the biggest contributions of men for me, and you'll hear it in Jack, and you'll hear it in Mike, men's brains and men's being, right? Men are so nurtured by beauty. They're warriors. Right? They're warriors. There's and this may sound bad to say, but when we come to terms with it, there's an inherent violence in human beings. And men are much more aware of this than women are. And they seek peace. And that committed state of mind is a state of peace, which is why interruptions are so hard for them. They're less productive and they've lost their peace when we interrupt them. That's why it's so diminishing. But they're nurtured by beauty, and beauty, like, it energizes them, it perks them up. It's like we talk about in Keys to the Kingdom, it's color in a black and white world, was the way one man put it. And so their eyes are tuned to see beauty. We're the opposite. We're tuned to see flaws. We're tuned to see things out of place. We're tuned to see things that are wrong. So we see the wrongness, including when we look in the mirror, and they see beauty. And I asked Dan about this because
Wow.
I wear makeup for this. I literally put up makeup to do this because it's
You
professional. You wear makeup, but I don't
you're
like to wear makeup.
gorgeous. Mm.
Thank you. I don't like to wear makeup. And I asked Dan early on, so, how are you about makeup? Because I don't get made up. That's not a normal part of daily life. And I'm not going to false advertise. And, and, and then he was fine that I usually never wear makeup. But then I noticed he had a reaction to when I did.
Oh.
And I wanted to know what it was. And oh my gosh, Kelly, we'll stop with this one.
Okay.
So what sucks women into makeup is flawless, right? That it's about counteracting.
Mm-hmm.
Make small eyes look bigger, make thin lips look thicker, make chubby cheeks look like they have cheekbones, right? Makeup's all about fixing. And so that's our approach to makeup, is fixing. And early on, like Jack says in the book, men taught me that when a woman wears too much foundation, her natural radiance can't be seen. And that radiance is the beauty of every woman, that we literally radiate life force. It's coming out of our skin, and it's gorgeous to men. It is a head turner radiance, and every woman can have it. But when we're worried about imperfection, cover the freckles, cover the zit scars, cover the whatevers, right? Then you get pretty, but you don't get beauty. You don't get capital B beauty, right?
Right.
So when I asked Dan about makeup and what he liked about makeup, shocked the heck out of me. Shouldn't have, after all these years, right? He said, well, I like it because it emphasizes. It calls attention to a woman's eyes, to a woman's lips, to a woman's cheekbones.
Wow.
He likes the emphasis. He grew up with 4 sisters, and he loved seeing them get made up and their eyes popping, right? And they're like, it wasn't
covering anything up.
It wasn't about fixing anything or appearing to be different. It was about calling attention to what we are.
Alison Armstrong, I just adore you so much. I so am grateful, and I have 5,000 other questions, but I feel like it's all here. And I know that so this ongoing journey people can sign up for, even if they haven't read. They can like speed up and kind of catch up, or they can explore. What's the next thing for people to do after they get the Queen's Code book and audio?
Okay, so the first thing is the audio is only available on our website. You can't get it on Audible or anywhere else.
And the most elegant website, because I know there's a lot of different ways to reach you. What's the easiest? Is it AlisonArmstrong.com?
Yep.
Okay.
And understandmen.com will go there too. And you can spell my name with 2 L's and it'll still get you there.
Thank God.
It'll all work. Okay. And you have a choice. You can just get the audiobook, or you can get your Queen's Code Journey, which comes with the audiobook. It's
nice.
$89 instead of $29.
Okay. But they get the interaction with you.
Exactly. So 2 hours a day, an AM and a PM time, because you have people all over the world.
Right.
And we do some exercises like that. Like for chapter 3, we did an exercise where people got to say what was there for them to say about what was being asked in that transformation. But mostly I answer questions. And I'm trying to spread the opportunity around. But most people's minds don't generate questions. So out of like 100 people who show up, there's over 500 people in the journey. The 100 people who show up, only like 7 people raise their hand to ask a question. Either because their mind doesn't think that way, or they don't want that attention. But there's the recordings of the ones that we've done so far. And then we add the new ones each week within 48 hours. And there's even what I did because, Karen's notes, right? She takes these notes.
Yes.
Learning,
So
right?
I love every time we get to the section where she's recapping, I'm like, thank you, Karen. Yes.
Thank you, Karen, for the recap, right?
Yeah.
So what I did, because in the audiobook, someone would have to replay it over and over again to like get the homework assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So in your Queen's Code journey, we have session pages, and I've taken it from the book and printed it there. So her notes and the assignments, you can see them in writing instead of having
super valuable.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and follow it in your own life if you want to do that. And then I also keep updating, like letting people know if masculine and feminine empowers you, use it. Or hunting mode and gathering mode, fascinating way to see human beings, or committed state of mind, open state of mind, and that, what we call taking the vow, like to design your own vow. These are your commitments to yourself and others. So that's one of the things I love about the journey, and I love about online period, which, we had over 100 hours online by 2017. And first time I was ever ahead of the curve on something. And yeah, crazy. When COVID hit,
you were already set to go.
We were set to go. And when I heard about the lockdown, I went, we have people with opposing instincts now being stuck in a cave, and no one's going to let them out to hunt and gather and express their instincts and release the tension. Oh, this is terrible. And we gave away 6,000 copies of the Understanding Women course. And we gave them to our graduates to give to their friends, okay, we have to save these people. If they could only understand what's happening, it could turn out better. And I know, Kelly, when you started with me, everyone started with Understanding Men. And now we encourage both men and women to start with Understanding Women. One, so that women don't sacrifice themselves to adapt to men. Very important. And it's the essence of the communication lately. Honor yourself first, or all is lost. And also because Understanding Women, in order to teach men about women, I had to translate it into their world, right? The brain lives by the perception of a difference. So in Understanding Women, I'm distinguishing women and what they need, but contrasting it with what men need, and therefore why they didn't know women need this, with how men think, and therefore they can't even conceive of diffuse awareness. They call it multi-focus. They can't understand no focus, right? So we have everyone start there because of the contrast and the balance, and also for women to see men aren't misbehaving. When you're learning about yourself and you realize you didn't know this about you as a woman, so you could never tell a man this about you, and he hasn't a clue your brain doesn't work like his. He hasn't a clue your hormones don't work like his.
Right.
And seeing how hard the men try, right? How hard they try to get it. And another thing people can go to right on the homepage at AlisonArmstrong.com is you can click on it. It says, what's so different about men and women? And you can click on a free half-hour sample of Understanding Men online, which, Kelly, it starts with distinguishing safety. And if you remember from that workshop, what it was like to compare men feeling unsafe to women feeling unsafe, and the revelation. And it's even better on video than live, because the camera, you're seeing all the men's reactions, which I was the only one who got to see all the men's reactions as they were finding out about women and safety.
Oh, I can't wait to see this.
But because of that angle of the video, you get to see the men in their jaw dropping, and then later on, because I'm pro-sex, people need it, couples need it, and Understanding Women someone wanted to just go to the session on female sexuality in the Understanding Women course, and didn't understand why we wouldn't let him. And we're like, well, because with women, all these little pieces add up to great sex.
Yes.
And if you miss any of them,
it's not great.
If she doesn't feel supported, if she doesn't feel liked, if she doesn't feel wowed, if she isn't given, taken into account all the things that will distract her, if you don't take care of all these things, you're not going to have what you want. But one of my favorite parts, Kelly, we really am going to start talking. So in the female sexuality part of Understanding Women Online, which they're perfect companions with the Queen's Code. I talk about why you don't hear women say, and then I made him come. And if you can imagine, Kelly, me on stage imitating what a man does that alerts us he has now decided to go for home. Right? Like that we know we don't make you come because we can tell exactly when you've decided to come. Because you change.
Right. Oh my God.
And there is Alison Armstrong, right? Middle-aged. I think I'm middle-aged because I'm planning on living to 120. So I'm in the middle. And
exactly. Just
like
getting warmed up.
You get to see her air humping. And you see the men are bent over. They are bent, the tears streaming down their faces. They're laughing, me imitating them.
Oh God. Oh,
it's really fun. It's Understanding Women is so much fun.
That is so wonderful. You've got just this wealth of like keys, gold, wisdom that we need so deeply if we want to live happy, fulfilling lives. Can I just tell you one little teeny thing? So quick.
Yes, you can. Then we'll make ourselves stop because we can do this for days.
Exactly. So I drove, my husband and I drove all the way from Santa Fe, New Mexico to LA because I wanted to be here in my office to do the recording with you instead of somewhere on the road where the internet might be wonky. So it was a long road trip. And most of the time, Dana always likes to do the driving. And very rarely does he ever let me drive. But on this drive, because it was so long, we did trade off. And I had you and the Queen's Code on my mind and in my ears. And I was thinking, oh, being accountable, being in masculine mode is driving. Because I was suddenly in a totally different experience of the road when I was driving. I was tighter, I was tenser, and I was laser focused. And I needed things to be a particular way so that I could focus. I had to block things out. And then I noticed when I was in the passenger mode, how I could just daze off and I could look at things and I could rub Dana's shoulders and I could listen to the radio and I could work on my book. And it was like diffuse awareness in the passenger seat. And then I noticed when we switched how softer Dana got and how he was able to pull, like he was able. So it was kind of like, I was just thinking, is masculine and feminine similar to driver versus passenger? Like I got a sense of the fluid nature of our being and our relationship and how, and not to take it personally when he's focused and accountable and not focused on me, because that would be inappropriate driving. We would get in an accident. So I had kind of, I've been percolating as well. And just in your field, I feel like I'm being changed in the most profound ways ways I didn't even know I needed to be changed, ways I thought I was doing great. It's like, no, honey, you need to work on this. And in ways that I think I'm doing awful, it turns out I'm doing better than I think. And I'm so grateful for your playfulness and yet this sharp clarity that is crystal clear. It's like you bring this blend of characteristics to your work that is, it's just uncanny, the variety of voices and energies, but it all lands like medicine. delicious medicine
Wow.
that Mary Poppins wrapped in bubble gum, but it heals my heart. And I know it will heal everyone's heart. So thank you, Alison Armstrong. Thank you for the Queen's Code. Thank you for being such an example. And I could go on forever acknowledging you. I just want everyone to, in order to thank you, I just want to pay it forward and to share the wisdom as best I can. And all roads lead back to Alison Armstrong and AlisonArmstrong.com.
Thank you.
On the
Thank
bottom
you,
of my soul.
Kelly. You're welcome. And can I thank you for something?
Yes.
Thank you for taking your fascinating screen that you had put together. That image is awesome, right? I was admiring it. And then you showed us this. And so it's so beautiful. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for sharing with me your real environment.
My real world.
It's beautiful. And that's Frida, right?
It's Frida. She's my patron saint. And sort of celebrating like the breakdown that leads to the breakthroughs, and that we can, and you've done that. You took your broken heart from your previous marriage, and then you've come up with all and this is what we can all do. This is why the title of the book I'm working on is A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. So you didn't waste your crisis. You turned it into beautiful gifts for all of us. And we'll all pass it on, and the world will be a different and better place as a result of it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show. If you enjoyed this episode, take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends. My show can be found on Apple iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to pre-order my new book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, go to your favorite online or brick and mortar retailer, then head on over to kellysullivanwalden.com/tragic2magic. Input your order number and redeem your bonus gifts. I'm also excited to be offering a new live DreamWork practitioner training. So if that calls to you, go to kellysullivanwalden.com/dreamwork. If you'd like to join me for the live recording of these shows, most Wednesdays at noon Pacific, you can find me on Facebook at Kelly Sullivan Walden Dreams. If you have a question about your dreams or about how to transform your tragic into magic, email me at kelly@kellysullivanwalden.com. Until next time, remember, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And as you awaken to the power of your dreams, you make the world a lighter, brighter, more beautiful place, one dream at a time. Sweet dreams.